All right. Hello. It looks like I'm live. I'm really happy I managed to go live today. As I was writing earlier today, I'm out of the office for a bit this week, but I really want to jump on here for just let's say 15 minutes. I'm aiming for 15 minutes today, a short live stream. You know me, so we'll see if I manage that to tell you everything I want to tell you in under 15 minutes. But maybe I will. We'll see. But the thing is, I went to Czechia for a little conference thing, something like that. And I have so many insights regarding, this thing with picking up languages because Czech is my first language, as you know. And I struggle so badly speaking Czech right now. And it's so funny. I've lived in Norway for a long time and I do Norwegian all the time or English. And what I really want to talk to you about is why I struggle so badly. And you might have met it yourself if you're an expat living abroad for a long time, that you would struggle with your own language. But this is really good to look at because very many people, when they first see my work, when they see how I teach people to learn Norwegian through input, through picking it up, and I'm a great proponent of understanding grammar and all those things as well, but I just do not believe that it works. I haven't seen the grammar way work unless you combine it with the input, right, from the other side, unless you have that modeling and unless you actually pick most of those things up, then understanding the grammar just as it is doesn't really help. It definitely doesn't help most people. And seeing the analogy with your own language, I think it's is just priceless because what people struggle with when they see that I teach learning Norwegian through input and through picking it up, people very often do not believe that it's actually possible. And I still remember I used to be a skeptic as well until I was converted, until I also understood the principles of language learning and I saw how it worked on my own example. But I still remember when I was at high school and we were learning English, right? And some of the guys in the class suddenly started understanding a lot. They suddenly had a lot of vocabulary that they just didn't struggle to use it. And I was the good schoolgirl, right? I was memorizing all these lists and everything. And suddenly they knew like random specialized words for like things. And I was like, wait, how did you learn it, right? Like, where did you get the list that contained a word this advanced, quote unquote, that you actually know it? And they would be like, oh, I learned it playing video games, right? And I was like, no way, you can't learn English playing video games. Well, of course you can, right? Turns out you can. And turns out that it's actually the only way. I don't mean video games. Obviously, you can do it in another way, but the input, right? The video games, they model you the input and they make sure that you consume enough. That's what they do. And they also make it understandable and relevant to you at that point. You can use TV for this. You can use podcasts. You can actually use naturally occurring speech as well. The problem, though, with naturally occurring speech is that in your typical environment, which would be your workplace, it's pretty much restricted to one or several topics, right? So you would get good at the things that you meet every day. And then when you want to talk about some kind of random something, as we normally want to do, you struggle because you haven't had enough modeling for this. So that's where actually podcasts or TV are better than real people. Or maybe attending classes, right? University classes in no way are accessible to the general public if you talk to the person who's giving the lecture. Not seminars, but if it's just a lecture, then it's usually possible to sit somewhere at the back. Or, there are a lot of societies in town that actually run lectures depending on if you're interested in the topic or not. But if you listen to a lecture, that's a bit like a podcast, isn't it? And in this way you gather enough, right? And why I'm saying it is that right here, like I try to talk to people and I struggle so badly to express myself in a sophisticated adult way in Czech on these topics, because we only ever speak about like domestic topics at home, right? Or some kind of scheduling, planning. And when we speak about something that's a bit more, say, advanced, a bit more theoretical, when I speak about such stuff with my partner, I would use phrases in English. I do that. I admit that it's not perfect for my Czech, but I do it because it's so much smoother and easier, because that's where I have the input, right? And sometimes we just put in some Norwegian if it's something relating to the Norwegian topics, right? And that's how we speak, and it's weird. And our friends even tell us like, your Czech is really weird. And I see that when suddenly I talk to somebody who actually does not speak any English or any Norwegian, I really, really struggle to say the whole thing in Czech, right? And this is something that people normally struggle with in the other language, right? Normally, or at the beginning, you can express yourself fully and naturally in all contexts in your language. And then when you want to say it in Norwegian, you would struggle and you would hit the wall, and you would be like, all right, I want to say this, but how do you actually formulate this thing in Norwegian? You haven't got it modeled yet, not enough times, right? And when I see it from this other perspective, that I want to speak about something that happens in Norway, I want to tell people how things are, how we normally do it, how we organize stuff over there, right? And I'm like, okay, and then you do the, and I want to say what it is, and I don't have the words, and I can't even describe it. And I can only do it in Norwegian because I know exactly how the wording goes, right? And this is the paradox of speaking, that we believe, all of us like to believe naturally, that when we speak, that we have free choice. And we don't. When you speak a language, like your own language or like Norwegian, we never have free choice with the wordings, right? And of course, we have the grammar, we have the word order, that's one thing. But what people don't realize very often is that we have these almost prescribed wordings, or ways in which we express certain thoughts. We have ways of putting words next to each other, and this is how you say it. And if we consume a lot of this input, then we will learn these particular ways in Norwegian. And then when I know the Norwegian way and I want to say it in Czech, I will struggle badly to even translate it, or to even say, I don't even have to translate it, just to say something similar in my own language, which I should be competent in, but suddenly I'm not. But I see that when I talk to people and they say things in certain ways, I can repeat it after them pretty soon. And that again is the picking up principle that I always tell my students to really work hard on encouraging, spending loads of time consuming Norwegian input, so that they are able to actually repeat what they have heard, recycle. Yeah. When we speak, we recycle the wordings that we have heard before, and we have much less free choice, or we use the free choice even much less than what we have of it when we normally speak. So this is this is very, very important to see. Yeah. And I think that the context that you only got modeled in Norwegian show you very clearly that when you want to describe this to somebody in your home country, and you want to talk about it, and suddenly you do not know how to talk about it, not only don't you know the name of the thing in your own language because maybe it doesn't exist, that's one thing, right? But it's hard to actually describe it, which shouldn't be hard if speaking was grammar plus vocabulary, and you know the vocabulary, and you're obviously competent in the grammar of your own language, right? But it's not like that. We just repeat the chunks. So that's that. And as a fun fact, I also tried to take some handwritten notes, because I was attending some lectures and I was like, I'm going to take notes. And I struggle with that even, because part of it is the modeling, and the other part of it is the muscle work. And that's where the handwritten notes actually come in, because I've seen this many times. I used to be really good at writing notes with my hand when I was at university, and it's been a while, right? And then I took some additional studies in Norway, and I struggled badly the first month to take notes. I was just writing some kind of gibberish, and my hand wasn't listening to me, and I wasn't quick enough, and I was skipping letters. And then in a month's time, I build it back up again, right? Because it's a muscle. There is muscle memory involved, just like in speaking. And now, I haven't written handwritten notes for a while again. I don't do that normally. I basically only write to-do lists, and that's not too much writing or quickly. And now again I'm struggling. And again, the moral of this, or the point of this, where I'm telling you about me not being able to take notes, is that this is the same thing that is now happening to me with my Czech. I'm trying to speak, and not only don't I have the ideas for the wordings, they don't come that naturally. I have to work to kind of fish for them, and I really want to say it in English or in Norwegian really badly, but I know that the people wouldn't understand me. So I have to stop myself, I have to word it. It works just like when you struggle to speak another language, which is not your first, right? But then the other thing is that I just keep stepping on my own tongue when I try to speak Czech, because again, the muscle stereotype isn't in place for these topics. It's in place for speaking about the domestic sphere and the things that I talk about with my partner, because we speak mostly Czech at home. But like I was saying, when I start struggling at home, I just shove in a Norwegian phrase and there I go. Here I can't do that because nobody speaks Norwegian around me, right? So I have to kind of concentrate, and I have to use my muscles consciously, just like when learning again to write with my hand, right? So it's pretty similar. It's funny. And another thing that I see here, I took my son with me, and what happens for him a lot, because he was born in Norway, he struggles a bit with all these endings that we have in Czech. We have a lot of grammar in Czech, and he knows the endings, so sometimes he misuses them, uses them like in a different way than what he should. And what I see here, after just one day of talking to some other kids, he got it fixed, almost like he got so much better in just one day, because he got another source of consistent input in relevant topics, and he just repeats what the other kids say, right? So I think all these examples clearly show that it is possible. And apart from my son getting better in Czech grammar, which is a good thing, all the other things I'm describing are pretty much inconvenient, because suddenly I seem to not be able to speak my own language properly, right? But what this shows is how used I got to these other languages that I, in a certain respect, use more than Czech, yeah? When I speak about, for example, languages, I basically only speak Norwegian or English. And yesterday I got into a debate with some people about, like how linguistics work and things like that. It was really good to talk about these things. But I struggled so badly because I only ever studied this in other languages. So I really have no phrases. So as inconvenient as these examples are, and I think you know them from your own life as well, and maybe not talking about linguistics, not so many people do that, that's my thing, but you know these, and you know how inconvenient these are, but what they show you is how this input things work, right? You get the input, you repeat it out. When you get it enough times, you'll be able to repeat it, and you need to build the muscle so that it goes naturally and easily. And that's what can be worked on as well. I teach it in my courses, so I know it works. Yeah. And if you only get enough, you will spit it out without even wanting to. And that's the thing I would like to finish on today, because yesterday, or the day before, I was posting this quote from Bluey. And Bluey is my favorite now. I love Bluey. If you haven't seen it, you should, and you should put it on in Norwegian. It's on Disney Plus, I think. And the only problem is that the subtitles don't quite match, but they still help. They still help. It's not the worst case scenario, but they don't match exactly. But in Bluey, her dad was saying, hindringer blokkerer ikke veien, de er veien. And I like this point, philosophically speaking, And that's why I noticed it. But also, what happened for me with this one and why I decided to post about it was that I suddenly remembered it, right? And maybe in these two sentences, there is something interesting grammatically for you. Like, for example, that if you start like this, then the hindringer would be überstemd, right? Or maybe the stress, like the what's called the trykklegging, yeah, like how you put the stress in the second sentence. You go like de er veien, right? How you stress the er. These things, I just remembered the phrase or the set of the two sentences just like they were, and it was so easy. It's like when you overhear a stupid catchy song, and suddenly you're unable to get rid of it. So that's what happened for me with that phrase. And if you watch Norwegian TV consistently, then these things are going to happen for you, right? And if you can cultivate this ability in it, if you can be observant and just check it, like, okay, how exactly did they say it? You can really ride on this wave, right? You can remember the phrase, you can kind of repeat it in your head or repeat it out loud, like I do. I recommend that a lot, just speaking to yourself or trying to use the phrase or a similar one, right? And it's not like you can go around and tell people that like hindringer blockerer ikke veien, right? But since you remember the phrase so easily, it just got stuck without you making it stick or without you wanting for this particular one to get stuck in your brain. It just does on its own accord. It's so easy that you can derive the other things from it. Yeah, suddenly when you want to say that you have some hindrances in your way or some blocks, you know that it's hindering it, for example. Yeah, and that's just a stupid phrase that's really unusable as it is, unless you're talking philosophy or like, life views and things like that. But really, you can derive the grammar, you can derive all the other things from it. You can speak, you can use, you can take it apart, and you can use the words when speaking about the traffic situation or whatever else, and it happens so easily. So I guess that's the point I would like to finish on today, that just remember these things, remember these inconveniences in your own language when you suddenly can't remember or can't seem to be able to describe things because you can only do that in Norwegian. And think of these cases when you listen to a song, you listen to a podcast, you listen to something, and there is somebody who keeps saying this word or that formulation, or there is just something that sticks. Appreciate it, pay attention to the form of it, and most importantly, take these as the evidence of these underlying subconscious processes working, because that's the biggest hindrance, den største hindringen, right? When I start coaching students or when I talk to people who just approach me online, and I see that they don't actually believe that it's even possible. They've been taught that learning a language is hard work only, and they can't see that like how much you can actually pick up, right? So that's the take home, isn't it? That it is possible, and these are the pieces of evidence for that. All right, let me know under if you have some good examples of what got stuck in your brain. Maybe some of these stupid phrases that you would like to get rid of, but you can't. Yeah, I'll be really interested in having a look at that. Okay, until next week. Bye bye.